All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. I'll just introduce Roderick real quick. Today we have Roderick Bley from Fabricator's Choice joining us. He's going to be going over the issues tracking and reporting features in ActionFlow that we've added over the past couple of months. Roderick's a real close friend of ActionFlow. I consider him like an uncle to me, and he's just a great guy, very knowledgeable in the industry. And I just appreciate him taking some time today to run through this issues tracking for us. So, Roderick, with that, I pass it on to you.
Okay. So the opportunity here is to share with you a feature that I built almost 35, 40 years ago in my own companies. Same concept. We wanted to be able to track the primary reason, the granular reason, who done it, where's the problem, where's the issue, and then finally be able to report on it as the months and years go by. So here we are in this industry, and ActionFlow has embraced this feature, which I presented to them some time ago, and they have run with it very, very nicely. And I think we have a pretty cool feature that continues to get updated, modified, and I think you'll be excited to see how this works. I've broken this into two presentations. I have one called the user guide, and I have a separate document which I'll present at the end, which is more the admin of how to configure and get this up and going. So you should be able to just use this guide with your users and be able to give this to them and then and go from there. So my presentation is 100% going to be the PowerPoint presentation, which I have already shared with Josiah and Kyle, and they can distribute it to you in the best way they will do that. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go, can you move to the next cell there, please? Thank you. Okay. So the user guide is broken into several sections. And first, we're going to define what's an issue. Then we're going to look at the various reasons why there's issues. How do we capture them? And ultimately, how do we report them? This is all managed by a primary functionality of the system where we have to have special actions, which we call actions. Then we have opportunity to track remakes that are related to materials, non-inventory issues. Just want to record an incident, just want to keep track of the number of incidents. And then finally, how
oh my gosh, you got a camera, they're gonna watch me eating.
That's funny.
You know, if they could get the smell
Yeah.
over it, then it would be classic.
Yeah.
If everyone could go ahead and mute your microphones for us, that'd be great. Keep going, Roderick. We're going through muting people as well.
Okay. All right. So what is the issue process? More importantly, what is an issue? And we've thrown this around for a long time. Some people call them claims, some people call them callbacks, some people call them service calls, but basically it's any reason that the job or part of the job didn't quite go as expected. Whether it's a physical thing that went wrong or an expectation that went wrong, but bottom line is we didn't get the revenue that we thought we would have, and we weren't able to proceed with the job as we had hoped. So here's some examples, and again, you can come up with many more. You've got your shop remakes, and I always equate the word remake. It has a capital letter M in it, which stands for material. A little different than a redo, which is labor and time. You've got templating errors, issues, programming, fabrication, materials, maybe defective material, communication problems, you missed your deadline, and ultimately there might be a situation where adjustment needs to be made with the client. So in our terminology, we typically say it's a remake, a redo, service call. Because if you're using very low rating and you want to track that and be able to know ultimately in your pinpoint reports, more in your dashboards there, what happened. Okay. So again, these are our primary issue reasons. And again, I'm not reading cells to you verbatim, but I think you get the gist of it here, that these are the primary things that cause our issues in our workflows. So how do we capture this data? Where do we capture it and when do we capture it? Well, the old way, and we still see this quite often as we travel around and visit people, you use your typical spreadsheets or emails, or you build your own little database. And the bottom line is that you're disconnected from your primary system, which in this case is ActionFlow. If we do the ActionFlow methodology, we'll have great reporting. All the issues are related to your original job. You'll have correct material costs, and that flows automatically. You'll be able to capture a primary reason and a granular reason. More importantly, where did the issue start? Who done it? And then obviously we want to make sure that we know if we missed the deadline. Deadline in this definition is we missed the revenue, we missed the $T that we could have generated today because of an issue. And obviously it's as it happens. It's not something that you kind of sit on for weeks or months and then catch up later on. Reporting. This is the primary goal of this whole issue process, is to gather the data and report on it. I can't tell you how many times people continue to ask, how do I get this out of here? Power BI? Do I use ActionFlow? I'm just really confused where I get this kind of data. And truth be known, this is ultimately what culminated into this feature set, was a continual request to get the data centralized in one location. So this feature ultimately, at the end of the day, will generate a pretty phenomenal report, which I'm going to share with you pretty quickly here. The system is driven, and we're not going to get into too much admin stuff here, but I do need you to realize the components on the backside that make this all happen. So the next presentation here at the end is going to be all about the admin components, and it's actually pretty short and sweet. There's about a half a dozen things to do, and you're all set to go. But back in the admin settings, you're going to go and define a series of reasons on the left-hand side, which are predefined. Reasons aren't something you and I can add. Notice the plus button is not available to us. And that's because this whole feature set is pretty much hard-coded on the code side to be able to automatically generate the reports the way that they do today. So on the left-hand side, we see what we call our categories. So we've got our CAD and engineering, customers, fabrication, and down the list there. And then on the right-hand side is where you can define your specifics of how you want to see the granular data. So in this case here, we have a fabrication reasons on the left. And on the right-hand side, we've hand entered in all of the potential fabrication issues we might have. And this is kind of a big deal, because this is going to be your customized, your specific set of reason codes that you want to have in your shop. We do kind of have a boilerplate that we can share with you, but this is more specific to how you want to run your company. Now here's the report. So I like to show the report first, because it's always nice to have some visible idea of what this looks like on the report module. So in the report module, you'll see a report called Issues, Category, and Reasons. You can see that in this screen here in the upper left-hand corner. You're going to define a date range. And in this case here, we're just going to look at the canned report exactly as it is. So you can see on the left-hand side in the little blue box there in the upper left there, you can see we see some totals. And it's automatic, no human intervention on this report other than you picking a date range. So I can see that there was a total of 128 issues, which affected 120 jobs. Now this is for the month of January. And you can see some numbers at the bottom there. You can see we've got some material costs and non-material costs, and we have a little bit of revenue. We got $687. Well, that could be something where we have actually recorded some revenue that we wanted to collect from the client because of an issue. Could be a co-shared or travel expenses or mileage trip or something of that nature. On the right-hand side, here's where you can see those hard-coded categories. So you can see that we have 5 sales-related incidents, 10 template, 74 customer, and so that kind of gives you a high-level summary. And then below, you can see each of the jobs. And because this comes from a live database, I've blanked out the account name. I'm trying to keep it so that it's this is real data. I don't do much in the Play environment. This is real data. And but you can see here again, we're just looking at all the incidents that are here and go from there. So we'll see more reports here in a minute. Okay, now we have turned on this extra little checkbox at the top of that report that shows issues with job details. Now we get to see the area number, and we get to see more information of exactly what's contributing to this particular issue for this customer. So we can get a little bit more granular here. We can see exactly which area we have introduced more costs, or we have introduced a little bit more revenue that we're looking for.
And I wanted to draw your attention to show job details, show missing deadlines. Deadlines is where we have missed our goal, our target date. We haven't been able to realize the revenue we were hoping to gain. And if you're in the Think Solutions process and concepts, we definitely want to make sure we realize our key dollars on the days that we have anticipated to gain that revenue. Okay. So we said earlier, what's in an action? And I think the most important thing here in this cell is the last little statement that's in yellow. If we don't have one of these special actions, then we won't have a report. In other words, that is the link between your action, between your issue, and the report. It's all driven through this action. There are other parts and pieces, but without this special action, we don't have the data we're looking for when we run a report. So this is what we see in the process, and you may be an individual who actually manages the process, or you may have seen others that do this, but this is basically where all the parts and pieces come together when you're going through your job actions and you're clicking done, and then the next actions come down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if we look at, for instance, the FabST02 saw, we have three decisions: complete, we have a saw problem, and this usually indicates we have a physical problem, mechanical problem that we need our supervisor to come over and help us with. And once that's resolved, then it loops back again to the FabST02 saw. The third option is where I have an issue, but it requires new material. And this is where two things happen. Our supervisor still needs to come over and look at things and help us with it. But we now have this issue action. And these are special actions, which you'll see in a little bit here. But in this case here, this is going to go as an urgent action, and it's going to flag someone that we need to record this and deal with this. And in this case, we need to add new material. Okay, so I'm going to loop to the next cell here. There we go. Here's another instance where after the install, we have a complete, which is obviously the one we want to go with. Excuse me. But then we have two that are different types of issues. The bottom line is, again, each one of them will generate this special action called issue install, and we're looking for some reason codes to record this particular issue. And finally, we have one which we call claim. Again, everybody calls it differently. So here you can see you've got your service calls, your remakes, or modifications that you're doing, all different things that happen as far as the job went a little sideways, either after the fact or throughout the process of making the job. But again, now we have this issue called general, which just encompasses anything that wasn't install, fabrication, or programming, and it covers kind of it's a wet blanket that covers everything else. Okay, I'm going to go to the next cell here, I hope. Okay, so let's talk about some questions we have with job issues. How are the issue actions added to a job? Well, if you have them as part of the process and your operators check a decision that generates this issue action, then that's how it comes down. Or you can always add it manually as needed if you feel that this last little situation that just happened really requires us to record it. So I'm going to manually add the action. Okay. So again, when is it added? Well, it's part of the process or whenever you want to report it. The question I always get is, do I need to stop the progress of the job to record an issue? In other words, do I have to wait for somebody? And response is no. However, if it involves material, it should be recorded before the job is invoiced so that you have a record of this and you'll have your correct costing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And absolutely not if you're just recording the incident And you'll see in a little bit here, an incident issue is when we don't want to record anything about the material. We have no cost. You just want to record the situation as it happened. And the last one that's a real big one, I should have highlighted in yellow, is what to do if the job status equals installed. There's really no question here because you create a new job to deal with the issue. Do not manage your issues on jobs that have a status of installed, as you'll just basically cause an opportunity to duplicate job statuses, and that really messes up both Power BI and reporting within ActionFlow. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next cell. Here we go. How to record a remake or material. So I'm going to first lay it out for you in steps here, and then the next cell is going to give you some examples visually that you can see how to do this. So this is only one of several ways to do this, but this particular case here, we're going to open the original job area. We're going to duplicate the tops that we need to define the remake. We're going to expand our top list. And then there's a little checkbox that you check that indicates that this top that you just duplicated is a remake. As soon as you check that little checkbox, it automatically will include it as part of the issues report. If you calc and save now, then you can see the lines that are there. They clearly say remake. And it's really important to understand that remakes with that little checkbox will not generate a revenue for your client. It automatically sets the revenue to 0. And also, too, most importantly, the last statement says it will not publish on customer-facing documents. Example, an estimate, confirmation, an invoice. The client doesn't see this. So here's an example of that prior cell that we just walked through. You're going to open the area. You're going to duplicate that top. Notice if you expand your top list, you'll see there's a remake column, and you simply check the checkbox. And that, in turn, if you look at the right-hand side, will ensure that all the components related to that duplicated top on the right-hand side will be clearly marked remake. And you can see there's no revenue that is associated with that remake. Okay? Okay, so that's pretty straightforward as to how that works if you're taking that particular area and duplicating it there. A variation of this is sometimes people do not want to mess with the original area, so they simply duplicate that top and then move that to a new area and manage the remake there. So that's the variation of that particular way of doing things. If you look at the line items on that same job, the one we just looked at, you can see on the line items, it really is clear that the system has automatically set that SKU name to include the word remake. And you'll notice in the issue column, you can see that we have an automatic checkbox, and that's what drives it to the report, is that issue checkbox. Now, I want you to notice there's two colored boxes there. There's a red box and a blue box. The blue box is dealing with a non-material related component, whereas the red box, being the material, is inventory related. So you can see on the right-hand side, when we activate the cost checkbox on this area, you can see that the red box includes automatically the appropriate cost for that material based upon the square footage. In this case, it's a total remake of the piece, so we'll see there's 10.24 square feet, and the cost is $185.60. Whereas the edge profile has no cost, and it just flows through as being a line item that's required to do that remake. Here's another example where we have selected just a piece of splash. So the original top, the splash broke, nothing else. And so now I've duplicated my splash piece, which in this case is S2 from the original top. And you can see it's a remake. And you can also see at the top there, it's only 1.39 square feet. And it has a cost of $25.19, but no revenue to my customers. So this is a splash remake only. Okay, now we get into how do I record non-material issues. So in this case here, we built some special SKUs on the database in the admin SKU section. And you can see in this case, we've defined a unique class called issues. And then below that, we've defined some SKUs that we want to track the labor. So I have fabrication, install, and programming. Now the little HC that's in parentheses in the SKU name simply identifies that we're hiding it from the customer. So it's really clear to my project managers and anybody who's managing the job in areas will know that that particular line will never be disclosed to my client. So I could make comments, I could make notes, I can augment the SKU names, etc., append them as I need be. On the right-hand side, you can see I've clicked the hidden from customer and then add it to all your price lists, all your price calcs, where you want to record this information. Again, you can build your own SKUs. I just built the SKUs based upon the same theme as most of my actions go. Okay. So in this case, following up with that same cell we saw earlier, I need to charge the customer for the issue. Maybe they're going to co-share the trip charge or pay for the trip charge. Maybe we have some other compensation that we need to get from the client in order to deal with this issue. And in this case here, we're going to actually show that information to the customers, and we want them to make sure that they understand they're going to have to pay for it. If it's strictly labor related and you want to just track it internally, then again, these particular SKUs we set up that are called hide from customer are going to ensure that they don't disclose to the end user. And then the final one, if the issue type line item, if it's hidden from the customer, it's an internal use only. We're not going to co-share that with the end user. Okay, going to the next cell, I hope. I skip here. Can you bring me up one cell, please?
Yep. You can use these arrows down here. That might be
very
best.
good. Thank you. Yep. I was using arrows on my keyboard. Okay, so I think I'm where I need to be now. Okay, so this basically shows you how you would do that. You would manually add one of those issue, class, and SKUs. Okay, there we go. And you can see we've added that class and SKU. We have overridden the SKU name. I want to charge for the return trip charge, and I want to put a cost in there. So here I'm actually recording a cost. Now it's also important to note that when you add these SKUs to your database, you can predefine a cost if you know that that's the number you'd like to use each time you have a return trip charge. You can automatically populate that as well, and we'll talk about that in the setup session here. So here you can see what the summary of the area looks like. You can see that I've incurred a $250 cost, and of course that's going to show up on my report because I have the issue checkbox checked on that particular line in my line items there. Okay. So what type of reports do we have from the job area? Well, you've got job site details. So here's where we will see all the remakes that are happening because that's an internal document. However, an invoice, which I call customer-facing document, will not reflect any of the remake information that we have here. So on the left, you'll see job site details. You can clearly see that I'm calling out the remake. Those are the red boxes. On the right-hand side, however, the same particular job in the same area is not reflecting that information. So you're pretty much safe to know that this is not going to disclose to the client in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Again, the first statement should be highlighted and bold and capitalized, but I think the point is you cannot get anything to a report if you don't use an issue. So I'm going to walk through kind of now the steps required to get that on a report here. Okay, I'll click the down button here. Can you trigger that for me, please? Okay, so here's what happens when you have, where are we here? Okay. Here's what it looks like when you add that action. When you add that action and you click done, this is the dialog box that will pop up that's going to help us collect the data. So this dialog box is called Collect the Details. You'll see there's our high-level category. In this case, it was customer. You can see that somebody caused some damage after the install. And in this case, we're going to use we set up a non-licensed user, a non-registered user, simply called XX customer. We also add XX vendor, which allows us to assign an issue to a vendor if it's a vendor problem. I didn't miss my deadline, and you can see now I can add my text at the bottom to detail a little bit more as to what the actual issue was. Okay. Let's go to the next cell. I'll let you do it there. Okay. Here's another example. Here's where I have a fabrication issue. So you can see when I click done, the same little collection details dialog box pops up. It's a fabrication issue. The piece moved on the CNC. The machine, I'll blame it on the machine in this case, and the vacuum pods did not stay in position. So here's a case where I'm simply recording an incident. It may not necessarily be something where I have caused a problem on my material. If I don't need extra material, I can still record the incident and move on. Okay, next cell, please. Okay, now we're going to talk about non-material incidents. So what is an incident issue? Again, not material related. I don't need to collect revenue. I don't need to record any costs. I simply want to record the incident just by collecting the data of my category, reason code, whodunit, and the comments. So down below are some examples. And again, you must add an issue action. So here's where you manually add an action rather than the system dropping it down for you. So you pick the appropriate action. Go ahead, please. So here you can see maybe I'm going to grab my issue general reason code, and I'm going to go ahead and follow through with that. Okay, next cell. So this is what it looks like. If you click done, but you haven't managed your area, in this case, I have no reason to manage my area. I don't need to record new material. I don't need to record new costs or revenues. So the little first phrase there is the tickler. There's no items marked as issue. That's that little checkbox in the area. So therefore, you're welcome to continue, and we'll just record this incident. We're not going to worry about any details in the area. Next cell, please. Okay, so here's what that looks like. So if you have an incident, a report where you have just incidents only, the first clue is on the left-hand box there, the blue one, you'll see there is no revenue, no costs, and no margin. So in this case here, this particular situation, we were strictly looking at incidents, and you can see I've given two little screen captures, what it looks like for template and what it looks like for customers. And all you're doing is recording. You can see the comments on the right-hand side, and it's very clear what we're trying to do here. Next cell, please. Okay, things to consider. It's really important if the job status is installed, you create a new job. If it's partially installed or an earlier status, you're welcome to do it on the existing job. It's not going to mess up your actions and your job statuses in that regard. Okay. Remake issue, either work it in the existing area, as our first example was, or as I said earlier, you can create a new area and potentially duplicate or copy the components over to the new area and keep that area strictly set up as remake. Notice on the third point, how will it impact schedule, calendars, square footage, and $T? Well, if there's material associated to it, it'll always impact $T as it's an additional cost to the job. If it's an incident issue where you're not recording anything relevant to material, revenue, or cost, then it's not going to impact the calendars at all. Next cell, please. I just wanted to share this with you. One of my clients had been accustomed to very detailed reporting in his prior system, and he went to ActionFlow about a year ago, and we were really struggling trying to get him the same level of data on issues. And so he was one of the driving forces that really caused me to buckle under and work with ActionFlow. And like I said earlier, I got a great response from the ActionFlow team, and they really dove in And they took this to a much higher level than I had ever done previously on my own or with other systems that I had presented this to. So this is his comment. I didn't edit it at all. It's exactly what he said. And I was he's a difficult customer to, sorry, not difficult. He's hard to please. But when we do something that is good, he lets me know, and I pass this along to the developers of ActionFlow and thought it'd be worth to share it with you. Next cell, please. Okay, so basically, closing comments are capture the issues as needed in your company. This presentation is to stimulate you to move forward. Yours may look a little different than what I presented, but the concepts are no different whether you roll it out with your words or the way I presented it here today. Okay, next cell. Okay, I believe that's it for this presentation. I'd like to stop for a moment and see if there's anything in the chat or anything that anybody would like to bring up before the next presentation is less than 5 minutes, so if you could hang in there for anybody who's an admin person, I think you'll appreciate the nuts and bolts behind how to configure it.
Yeah, any
Alex,
question?
go ahead. Alex raised his hand, so either put it in the chat, Alex, or go ahead and ask.
I'll start. Yeah, hey, how do you check or how do you get your costs to display on the remake? If it's not populating, how do you get that to show?
We have an area, we just did a test, and the costs for square foot items are not showing up at all. It's just zero.
This Alex?
Yes, and Zane.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
How are you today?
Hi, Roderick.
Okay, so it's really important to look at the lines and make sure that you have the checkbox set in the remake, in the top list, I'm sorry. And that should automatically record the cost of the material automatically. There's no human intervention whatsoever if it's material related, okay? Provided that material has a cost value, and you can do that by opening up your cost checkbox and taking a look on your right-hand side there in the area summary and look to see if you have a cost value in there. If not, we might have to take a look at it, but that should be pretty much automatic.
Okay.
If it's non-material,
cool.
Go ahead.
No, that makes sense to me. Go ahead with what you're about to say.
So if it's non-material related, then you can in the lines area, you would make sure that issue checkbox is checked. And then if you have costs checked, you should be able to enter like I did on the mileage trip where I wanted to charge an extra $250. So I wanted to add a cost of $250. It's an internal number. Whether you generate a revenue for that that's immaterial, but you can add a cost. So make sure that issue checkbox is checked and you have manually entered a cost on the non-material lines of your area.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, and we can look at that one-on-one. If you're still having an issue, you know how to get a hold of me. Okay, any other questions before we dive into the admin side of the configuration?
Just reiterating that a couple questions about sending out this recording. We will send this recording, email it to everyone who registered, and then we will probably also put it on our YouTube page. So we will make sure you get a copy of this.
Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick. Most of you know me. I'm the CEO of ActionFlow. First, I know you're not done yet, but I don't know if some people are who aren't administrators might take off. So I wanted to say this. First, I want to say a huge thanks and shout out to Roderick. He mentioned it, but he worked really hard with us to get this working. And then he worked, it's a really cool presentation. And also just to Jordan internally, he was our guy at ActionFlow who was working to make this work. It's exciting. I was involved but it's exciting to me just to see kind of this presentation and this feature all coming together. I mean, and I think this is obvious to everyone, but I mean, it's just exciting because of like the tremendous value that's possible here. And that, you know, these remakes, I think you all know it. I mean, this is real money. If you have to use another slab because you mess something up, that's real money. If you have to send somebody out to do a second install, not only do you have to pay that guy to do that second install, but he's not doing another job that he would have been doing. So these issues are costing real money. And if you can, you know, reduce them by 10 or 20 or 30%, there's potentially thousands of dollars that you could be saving each month by getting a hold on these. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm excited about the value that's possible with these things. So yeah, go ahead and continue with the setup part.
There's a question in the chat here, and I just wanted to add my comments. It said, is this included in all of the ActionFlow, or is this an additional cost? Absolutely not. We're currently using all the features that are currently in your enterprise version of ActionFlow. Assuming that you're using materials, that's part of the enterprise version. And you control the actions, you build the actions. You'll see that in a moment, how we're going to set that up. And you, again, build the SKUs in your class definition and your SKU definition. So there's absolutely no cost other than your time, and then working with your team to ensure that you capture the issue. So I think you should be good there. So I think you were ready to kick over to the admin side of it. So if we lose a few folks, again, thank you for joining us. So let's carry on with the admin guide. Okay, let's see how my down arrow. Whoops. Let's see how my down arrow works here. Go ahead. Okay, so there's a little bit of repeat. So I'm not going to go through this again. Keep going through the cells. This was a bit of a repeat from the prior presentation. Okay, so this is a repeat. So again, just a rehash. Carry on. Okay, carry on. Okay, so here's where we get into the actions. So here's how you built the actions. So I basically created a set of actions that all commence with the word issue. I capitalized them so they're very easy to see in the drop-down list. You can see in this database, we have a solid surface workflow and we have a stone workflow. If you have any other kind of workflow, a cabinet workflow, or any other product, culture marble, you'd build them out so that they're very specific to each of the workflows. The important part is the pre-action method. So if you look at that column in the lower left-hand side and you scoot over from the name, you'll see is urgent, and then you'll see pre-action method. This is what causes this action to open that dialog box where we're capturing the details of the particular issue incident. So that's what triggers it. I have also identified this as being urgent. I want all my issues to go to the top of the do now list. And again, each of these actions is assigned to a different person. So I might have my fabrication issues go to the appropriate, shop manager. In this case, I've got one for solid surface and one for stone. My installs are going to go to my field manager, who might be responsible for my installers, or it could be your project managers. And then finally, we've got some programming issues here, and they're going to go to my programming manager, who's going to be supervising that department. And then again, you can see sort of a repeat of how I've woven those into the actions, into my process. I've got 3 decisions. The first one, of course, is I'm done, I'm happy. Second one is I've got a mechanical problem. I just need my supervisor to help me. And then the third one is I need new material, guys. I need some help here. And so now we go through the steps to record that and then get it back on track. So in this case, my job status would never have gone to installed. I probably, on the saw, if it's not complete, I wouldn't even have partial fab. I'd still be at a status of templated or a prior status that would not interfere with any reports I'm running here. Okay, next cell, please. Okay. So here's where we get into doing the calcs, the price calcs and the SKUs. So you saw earlier we have these issue SKUs. And again, this is just a repeat of those who were in attendance in the prior session here. So let's just scoot forward. to the next cell. There we go. So here again is just a rehash of what we just talked about earlier. We're going to create a special class. We're going to identify SKUs. Then we're going to add them to our price calc. And if you wish to hide them from the customer, you simply create hidden from customer. Now you can add any other SKU that you already have in your system at any time to your lines. Let's say, for instance, you want to charge the client an extra $50 or $100 for the travel charge. Simply drop down one of your existing SKUs that already calls out travel, and you're going to check the issue checkbox in your line items of the area and simply record and enter the revenue you wish to collect from your client. And you may also want to enter a cost at the same time so that you have captured both cost and revenue. If it's not hidden from the client, then that particular SKU will publish on the invoice and you'll be able to collect the revenue. Next cell, please. Again, here we're going to talk about the categories and the reason codes. It's important to know that the categories, we do not have any option to edit those. Those are predefined by the ActionFlow development team. That's because they're hard-coded to work seamlessly with the reason codes and how it shows on the reports, and it keeps it really neat and tidy. However, the issues themselves and their reason codes, you are at total control to design them the way you want. The third point is something I've always done. I've always added a miscellaneous option in case there isn't a logical reason that my users can select. However, if that users always are needing me to add a new one, I simply slip back into the interface, add the new reason code, and away I go. Next cell, please. So there we are, same cell as we showed earlier. So now you're going to log in as admin, go to configurations, click the little global checkbox, and all the categories are predefined by the word issue as part of the field name. Once you have those, then on the right-hand side, you start adding your reason codes. And I always take the time to reorder them alphabetically. This allows that drop-down list to be easily viewed without having to hunt and peck and find something that's not in an alpha sort. It just makes it easy for them. So that's something you would do manually. Next cell, please. That's it. Thus endeth the show. So looking again for questions from admin, but I think you'll find it pretty straightforward. It's existing features you already have, meaning it's not an extra add-on, it's not a module, it's part and parcel of your enterprise system.
Yeah. Thanks, Roderick. If anyone does have questions, please feel free to ask or put them in the chat. I'd say one of the reasons why it's included with what we're already offering is because this is kind of the purpose of the do now list, right? We want to assign that accountability to individuals and then allow them, when something goes wrong, to in live time say we've had an issue, and then we're not missing any chances to capture that information. We're collecting it in live time, and just making that do now list even more powerful, and capturing the data and information that you need. It's not just glossed over and I'll tell them later. No, it happened now. We're going to capture it now, and then we can go fix it later. So we're very excited about this offering.
Yes, and yeah, like we said, this should be to you by the end of the week with the slides and the recording of this video. So look out in your email for that. I think that is about it. Thank you again for coming. Thank you, Roderick, and have a great day.
You're welcome.
All right.
Have a great day.